Welcome back, everybody, to linuxacademy.com. My name is Terry, and in today's course, we continue our preparation for the Linux Foundation Certified System Administration exam. In this video, we're going to look at the network administration section for configuring network services to start automatically at boot. And there's two primary methods of working with services, as we've covered in the Linux Foundation Certified System Administrator preparation course. And those two systems are called what we call System D and sysvinit. Now, sysvinit systems will be covered in another video and tend to be a little bit older systems, so we'll cover those and how we deal with services on system or sysvinit systems in a later video. We'll talk about System D right now, which is a way of managing all the services that are running on most modern distributions. Most have already moved to System D, and others are in transition, including Ubuntu, which as far as Ubuntu 15.04 has made the transition to System D for service management. Now we're going to talk about network services, although everything that we'll talk about will be the same regardless of the type of service that we're trying to configure for our system. Since we're using our Linux Academy lab servers, we don't want to mess around with any of the network services that would be necessary to manage our system. So we're actually going to install something that is not generally used anymore, and I don't recommend that you put this in use because of its security, but for demonstration purposes, it'll be just fine because it is a network service. So we do happen to be logged into a CentOS 7 system, which is a System D server. So what we need to do is we're going to do a yum install on telnet server. And telnet, for those of you who may be younger and don't remember, telnet was a method of connecting to servers before SSH was in heavy popular use. Telnet does not provide any encryption, and in fact is not only easily exploitable, but most of the traffic can be intercepted in a man-in-the-middle attack, including passwords. So again, Telnet will allow you to connect to a server, but I certainly do not express any confidence that you can do so securely. So continue to use SSH. In our case, we're just going to be using it from a service perspective to review how we might manage it. So one of the things from a System D system that we can do is we can see what's running on the system if we do systemctl or system control and do a more. And this tells us everything and the status of all the services that are running on a system server. We see we've got Bluetooth and Crony and Cloud and a number of things that are running on the server, including the network service, etc. Is Telnet currently running on the system? We can tell by doing a systemctl, and we can grep for Telnet, or we can do a systemctl and a status of Telnet. And it will tell us that the Telnet service is not running. Let's make sure by doing a telnet-server. So we are not currently running a Telnet service on this system. So in order to activate a network service, or for that matter, any other service on our system to start automatically on boot, we have to enable the service. Now, enabling the service and starting the service are two different things. So let's clear our screen, and if we do a systemctl enable, and then the service that we want to run, then this will enable it so that when we reboot the server or the desktop, that particular service will actually run. Now, we don't have a telnet service. We have, I believe, a telnet server service. And you'll see that the service telnet or telnet-server is actually not the name of the service. For telnet, and this is again part of security because telnet is known to be exploitable, is they want to make sure that you actually really want to enable telnet. So in this case, what we have to do is we have to enable the telnet socket. And it's not actually enabling the socket per se. The service itself is called telnet.socket. So one of the things that you have to remember is system control, all it does is take the configuration file for that particular service, read it from userlib systemd system, in this case called telnet.socket, and link it to etc systemd system and sockets so that it knows what service to start. Now that we've enabled the service itself, telnet still isn't working because the service hasn't started. We can tell that by doing a telnet on localhost. And we see that actually not only is the telnet service not working, but we don't have the client installed. So real quickly, we need to do a yum install telnet. Because by default, again, because of its security, telnet is not available on our system. So let's do a telnet localhost again. Now it's trying to connect on the default port for telnet, which is default port 23, and I can check and see if that particular port is listening by executing the proper command. I can do an ss-tnlp, and then I can grep for a particular port. 23, in this case, if I do 22, that should tell me that SSH is listening, which it is, and I can tell that it's the SSHD daemon. So let's go ahead and clear this, and this time what we're going to do is a systemctl start telnet.socket. Now if I do the same command, the ss-tnlp, which tells me what's running on that particular port, I see that it is indeed listening on port 23, and the service is listening on port 23. And if I do a telnet localhost, then it tells me what's my login in this case. So my login would be, for example, my default user, and it allows me to log in via telnet. Now I can also, if I'm not sure if something is running, I can do a systemctl status on telnet.socket, as long as I know what the service is called, and it will tell me a lot of information about the network service itself, that it's loaded and it's active and listening. And if I do a systemctl disable on telnet or let's stop it first of all, telnet.socket, and then I repeat my command on the status, it tells me that it's loaded, but it's inactive, so it's not listening, and I can do that by doing a telnet localhost, tells me that it's not listening. However, at this point, if I were to reboot my system, the telnet service will actually start on reboot. So I have to undo what I did before, which is the systemctl disable telnet.socket. Now, because the telnet service is installed, I can manually start the service anytime I want by doing a system control enable telnet.socket, but at this point I have disabled the service from starting on boot. So just to review, we had to install the telnet server, the telnet client, and then we used system control to enable it to start automatically on boot. And then, of course, we use system control to start and stop the service itself. It doesn't really matter what the service is from a network perspective, whether it's the network service itself, SSHD, Apache, any service that's managed through system control is managed the exact same way and is linked from the same directories. If you want a little bit more information about system control and how it works on all services, I recommend you take a look at our coverage of the Linux Foundation Certified System Administrator exam, which goes into the system control and the sysvianet service management in a little more depth. But for starting network services automatically on boot, that's all there is to it. My name is Terry for Linux Academy.